Folks, I just want to say thank you for tuning in to a very special episode of Living on Purpose. My guest today is Nick Ortner. He's the author of The Tapping Solution, and he's one of the 2013 I Can Do It Atlanta featured speakers. And I just want to say welcome to the program, Nick. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. And, Nick, I just want to say, first of all, I love your book, number one. I'm still combing through it. For those that have just gotten a hold of your information and may not be able to attend the conference but still want to take hold of your work and this information, tell us a bit about yourself. Let's start from the beginning. How did you get to where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so, my book and the work that I've been doing the last couple of years is about tapping, or EFT. And we call it tapping because we're literally tapping on these endpoints of meridians on our body while saying certain statements. It's kind of a combination of ancient Chinese acupressure and modern psychology. And I discovered it for myself personally about 10 years ago. Clicking online, like we seem to find a lot of things these days, one link led to another, and I kept reading about this weird tapping thing. I mean, I certainly thought it was strange at first. It didn't make much sense that we're tapping on different parts of our body and whatnot, but the more I looked into it, the more I kept hearing story after story from people who are having really extraordinary results using this technique and using it to change their lives in all sorts of ways. So I started using it for myself personally with friends and family, and was astonished by how well it worked in so many areas of life, everything from pain relief to limiting beliefs to fears and phobias to weight loss and finances. I was just kind of blown away by the results. So about 6 years ago, I decided to make a documentary film about the process called The Tapping Solution. And I spent the last 6 years of my life teaching the technique, sharing the film, and just the last couple of months releasing a book about The Tapping Solution.
Wow, that's amazing. So, just to be clear, the tapping solution, is it a combination of both psychological, like psychological well-being, and it's also something that requires you to actually touch the person's body?
Yeah, exactly. So there's definitely a physical component, and you can do it on yourself. So you can do the tapping on yourself, and if you're working with a therapist and coach who does the tapping, they show you how to do it on yourself. And the tapping points are really simple to understand, and once you figure out the sequence, you do the same points all the time. And what changes is what you focus on, what your challenge is, what you're stressed out about, whatever it is that's going on in your life. And what happens, what the latest research has shown is that when we do this tapping process, when we tap on these endpoints of meridians while focusing on what's stressing us out or whatever the issue is, we actually send a calming signal to the amygdala in our brain. And the amygdala is that very ancient fight-or-flight response center, right? It's the stress center that we all are very familiar with these days, unfortunately, when life is so busy and hurried and stressed. So when we focus on what's stressing us out or experience the stress and we do the tapping, we send a calming signal to the amygdala and really let the body know that it's safe and release that stress.
Wow. So how can we do the tapping? How can we utilize this tool? Because this is a very powerful tool, and especially with nowadays with things that are going on in folks' life. I guess the gist of my show is about living on purpose and discovering your purpose, but it can be quite difficult to discover your purpose with all of the distractions that are going on outside of you. So by using tools like this, it can, in a sense, help us to cut down on the noise and eliminate some of the stress in our life, so that we can ask those very powerful questions. But I guess what I'm asking is how...
You're absolutely right. And what I would say to that point is, you say it's difficult to discover your purpose when you're stressed out. I say it's virtually impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at purely from a physiological basis, right, if we think about stress when we're stressed about something, from a physiological basis, from what our body does, the blood flows away from the brain and it goes into the limbs, right? And that's an ancient response because when you're stressed, your body thinks it's in danger.
Right.
It doesn't know. We might just be stressed about an email that comes in, but our bodies react in the way we would have reacted 10,000 years ago if a tiger was chasing us, right? So we get stressed, and this is why when you're stressed out, you go, I just can't think straight, or, I'm overwhelmed. And try to live a life on purpose or discover your purpose when that's happening. You literally don't have the blood flow in the brain to make it happen, right? Now, the opposite to that, and I'm sure a lot of people have shared with you, is when they do discover a life purpose or get more clear on their mission, it's when they're walking in nature or they're taking a bath or they're taking a shower. You know, people always say, "Oh my gosh, I come up with the best ideas in a shower in the morning."
Right.
So the body's relaxed because water and nature helps it relax us. So this is another tool that can help you relax, and when you relax, then these other ideas, the creativity, the energy to live a life on purpose comes forward.
Right, I totally agree with that. Getting back to what's natural, because sometimes even like the strategies, because I always say I love spirituality, but I love to be able to condense spiritual teaching so that if I bump into someone at Walmart or at, like we have a local dollar store, if I bump into them there, I could tell them something without getting the deer in the headlights look, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's one of the things that I love about tapping. I believe it leads to deeper spirituality because when you release the stress, you can have more awareness, and certainly there's a lot of elements to the process of self-acceptance and self-improvement. But it's very easy to just make it, you know, sort of an entry tool where you say, hey, your back hurts, you're in physical pain, it's a great tool for this. You're stressed out, you're overwhelmed by life, hey, you can use it for this, without having it to be, just like you said, a deep, complicated spiritual conversation.
Right. How do we use it? What's one of the simpler versions of the tapping technique that we could use on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, well, I can take you through a quick round or two of it if you want right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, good. So the first thing we do, there's a couple simple steps. First thing is to figure out what the problem is, right? What's our target? What is it that we want to work on? I like to call it the most pressing issue. What's the one thing you go, I'm stressed out about this right now. This is really bothering me. Or we can also pick something that we're feeling physically. So if you have physical pain in your body right now, it works really well in physical pain. So just identify that. Identify the tension in your back. Identify the pain that you might be feeling in your shoulders. Or just take one issue. Hey, I'm mad at this person for what they said, or I'm stressed out about that, or I'm overwhelmed about that. So pick your target, and then give it a number on a 0 to 10 scale. So if it was pain, you might say, my back hurts, it's a level 7. If you're angry at someone, you might say, I'm so angry, it's a 9. So pick the issue, give it a number, and then we're going to do some tapping on it. And we're going to do very general tapping here, because I don't know what your issue is, so we're going to use all the same language, but you'll see how it applies to you. So just start tapping on the side of the hand, and it's called the karate chop point. It is below the pinky, outside of the hand. You can use one hand to tap on the other. It doesn't matter what hand you use. And just tap with 4 fingers continuously, and just repeat after me. Even though I have this stress in my body.
Even though I have this stress in my body.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I want to do that 2 more times. Even though I have all the stress in my body.
Even though I have all the stress in my body.
I choose to relax now.
I choose to relax now.
And one more time. Even though I have all the stress in my body.
Even though I have all the stress in my body.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
And now we're going to tap through the points. The first point is the eyebrow point. Inside of the eyebrow, right where the hair ends and it meets the nose. And you can on one side, on the other side, or on both sides. The meridians run down both sides of the body. So just tap continuously and just say this stress.
Distress.
And now side of the eye, it's not at the temple, right next to the eye, right on the bone, one side or both sides, the stress in my body.
The stress in my body.
And under the eye, right on the bone, again, one side or both sides, all the stress.
All the stress.
Under the nose, all the stress in my body.
All the stress in my body.
Under the mouth, it's above the chin, below the lip, right in that little crease in there. Just tap with 2 fingers, this stressful issue.
This stressful issue.
We have 3 points left. For the collarbone point, if you feel for the 2 little bones of the collarbone, and you go down an inch and out to each side about an inch, I like to tap with all 10 fingers on both sides. This stressful issue.
This stressful issue.
Now, underneath the arm, about 3 inches underneath the armpit, it'll be right on the bra line for women, either side of the body. This stressful issue.
This stressful issue.
And the last point is right at the top, right in the top of the head. This stress in my body.
This stress in my body.
Let's do one more quick round at another point. So back to the eyebrow. This issue.
This issue.
Side of the eye. This stressful issue.
This stressful issue.
Under the eye. This tension in my body.
This tension in my body.
Under the nose. It's safe to let it go.
It's safe to let it go.
Under the mouth. I choose to let it go.
I choose to let it go.
Collarbone. It's time to let it go.
It's time to let it go.
Under the arm. Letting it go.
Letting it go.
Top of the head. Right now.
Right now.
And we take a deep breath. And let it go.
Wow.
And that was what's called a round or two. So, after a round or two, we check back in and say, well, what happened to the original issue? Did it go down? The pain was at 8, now it's 6. And then also, what else came up? What other thoughts, ideas, memories? And the tapping process is just one of, continuously going through until you get the result that you're looking for.
But real quick, just to be honest, and I'm always completely honest, I actually felt like pressure because I was in traffic trying to rush and get everything together, for the pre-recorded session. I felt like pressure off my head, like right around my sinus cavity, be released. Seriously.
No, I believe you. I'm always surprised, but I hear it again and again on a daily basis, and it's always just incredible how quickly the release happens.
And you said the meridians right around the face. That's where the sinus cavities are, right?
Yeah.
And it happens when you go to the doctor. The doctors tap into these points too. Sometimes when you have a sinus infection.
Yeah.
Just to release that pressure.
These points are really powerful.
Wow. Oh, my God. Folks, you're listening to a conversation between Jesse Herriott and Nick Ortner, the author of The Tapping Solution. If you haven't purchased this book, you definitely want to, storm your bookstores, Barnes & Noble, wherever books are sold. You can get it online as well, or you can actually get it in person. If you're in the city of Atlanta, you can order your tickets now if there are any seats left for the I Can Do It conference. Nick Ortner is one of the speakers. Nick, what time are you speaking?
I'm speaking on Saturday afternoon, and let me confirm the time. I think it's at 3 o'clock. I have it here at 3:30.
At 3:30. And if you're just tuning in to the interview, you can actually go back and download the show in its entirety by logging on to www.unity.fm, and you can scroll down the program directory, click on Living on Purpose, and you can download the show in its entirety or download the compatible Stitcher app for your phone. The Stitcher app is compatible with any of your smart devices, and you can take the show with you on the go. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more Living on Purpose right after this message. Okay, we are back. My guest today is Nick Ortner, the author of The Tapping Solution. Folks, if you're just tuning in, this is a great technique, and there are tons of testimonies in the book, but I can tell you right now, I am completely honest with you all the time. I was battling a sinus infection my own self, and so just by tapping on those meridian points just right around my sinus cavity, coupled with the affirmation and listening to Nick's guidance, I actually felt the pressure release in my face. So I can imagine, for other levels and deeper areas of pain and stress, psychologically and emotionally, that you guys may be dealing with or going through, this stuff actually does work. There's a lot of stuff out there that just doesn't really work for everybody, but I'm telling you, this is good stuff. Nick, just to get back into the book, you have tons of testimonies here. Healing through positive emotions, and tons of testimonies, but I want to ask you a specific question. Why is it, do you think, that we internalize stress so much to where we need, to be released from it? Like, is there a way for us to, in a sense, cut down some of the ways that we internalize these things? Because we often contribute to the pain we receive in our own body,
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. And, there is a way. Certainly, the tapping helps in the present term release of the stress. But what you're really looking for the most is not to not have the stress come up in the first place. Right? Mm-hmm. And where the tapping comes in there, what I've seen it most effective is when we go back to older experiences, when we go back to childhood experiences, when we go back to things from our past, especially those formative years. From the age of 0 to 7, we basically just download information from our parents, our family, and the people around us. So, if we had a tough childhood, we are more likely to be predisposed to stress. And if we're carrying around those events and memories and emotions and old traumas, we're more likely to react differently under stress. And it's shown, there's some studies done recently that have shown that childhood stress, childhood abuse, lead to not only more stress later in life, but more disease and more physical challenges. There's been a direct correlation between childhood trauma and physical disease. What we can do with the tapping is we can go back and, in essence, clean up some of that stuff. Not to, rewrite the childhood, but release some of that stress response that the body's carrying on a daily basis. And when we do that, we sort of lower the load on the whole thing. trauma as if you can imagine that there's a cup that's empty, and you pour a little water in, that's a little stress, and you pour some more, and there's some more stress, and you keep going to the point that it overflows, right? And that's when we can't handle it. And we know that for ourselves. We know when, if we have a day where there's just one stressful thing that happens, we handle it. It's like, okay, yeah, that was stressful, but I got it, and now I'm good. As opposed to the day where you have 30 stressful things that happen, and you're overloaded. You can't take it. So we can do the tapping to sort of empty that glass, to clear out those old traumas so it doesn't overflow.
Right, and that's amazing. I love the way you said that. You also say something to back that up in your book. We hear it a lot in spirituality circuits, and it sounds good, but then, of course, there are those in the scientific and medical community who disagree with this point that I'm about to make, where we say all diseases are created, in the mind, so to speak, or they have root in the mind, but you kind of step away from that point, and you say it in a way that makes more sense. You say in the book that rather than saying our mind creates disease, we participate in the creation of the physical, emotional, or otherwise, disease, and that's a lot more palatable,
I'm so glad you brought that up, because, that's an important point to me. And often people just go on both sides of the spectrum. They either say your mind creates disease, which somebody who's just diagnosed with cancer is pretty hard to swallow.
Right.
And it's understandable, especially when we look at, how about when a 6-year-old child has cancer?
Right.
That's tough to swallow. But if we say participate, then we can say it's one of the contributing factors, and there are other factors. And in some cases, in some certain diseases, emotion, stress plays a much bigger role than in other diseases where they might be related to environmental factors or lifestyle choices. I think having the awareness and understanding that we participate in that creation is something that we can also swallow without also feeling the guilt and recrimination that people tend to feel when they say, oh my God, I did this to myself, I created it.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. Candace Pert, who I think her book was about the molecules of emotions, she talks about this same concept. What effect does stress have on us, not just on a molecular level, but an etheric level? What does it do and when we internalize those problems and we don't, in a sense, process them, I guess, correctly, if that's the right way to say it? What happens to us energetically?
Well, I think we just carry it around with us. And I don't think we fully understand when you say process emotions correctly. Maybe that's the right word. I don't even know what the right word is.
Right.
It's somehow, why is it that somebody can have one experience and heal from it and be okay, that, another person can have the same exact experience and have a really hard time with it? We don't have all the answers to this. But certainly, when emotion is trapped in the body, when an experience, and if we go back to just that fight or flight response, sometimes the biggest issue, it's not even fight or flight, it's freeze, where someone has an experience and they didn't get to fight back, or they didn't get to run away, the body didn't get to do what it was used to doing, instead it was frozen, and then that's sort of locked in the body. People are finding out a lot more every single day about how the body works, how it heals, and beyond just the molecular chemistry level, and we're finding that techniques like this that address the energy of the are really powerful in creating lasting change.
Some of the symptoms and side effects that you talk about in the book, and just to read a direct quote, you said symptoms and side effects you might choose as tapping targets include things like addiction, weight problems, physical pain, self-sabotage, financial issues, and heart problems. I want to talk a bit about the juicy topic. All of those are very interesting, but I want to talk about financial issues because we're hearing reports about it in the news and in the media all day long. And I mean, if we could get reports from Google, I'm sure there are thousands of people that are Googling, trying to find out, discover their life purpose, or trying to find out how they can make more money legally. How do we apply the tapping solution to our finances?
Well, I tell you, step one, it's a multi-step process in terms of really getting clear and finding your life purpose. But step one is reducing the noise, what I call it the noise, around finances. And what is the noise? The noise is the stress. You're freaked out, and for a good reason. Shit, we got this bill. Oh man, this thing. But the problem with that is that now we have that stress response, and we can't cope with it. We can't come up with creative solutions. We can't come up with creative ideas that can help us move forward. So this tapping can quiet down that initial noise, and that's when we find out what
That's interesting. You also say in the book, you said, one word of caution as we explore this topic, while EFT is very safe and effective, it's up to you to decide which things you are comfortable with exploring. So there's really just this. Are there any tapping teachers other than yourself that can help guide us, or are we just free to just? Are we free to just pick an area and just apply it just immediately, or just
Yeah, I mean, the only caution that I have is if there's something like PTSD or some sort of psychiatric disorder or really deep trauma, that's something where you want to reach out to a professional, not necessarily, sort of approach that issue by yourself. But there's literally thousands, at this point not tens of thousands, of practitioners around the U.S., around the world, each coming from their own specialty. Some will take it from the coaching approach. Others will be a psychologist who uses EFT, or a psychiatrist who uses tapping, or an MD who does. So, reach out and you can just Google your local town and EFT or tapping for a local practitioner. And, if you really want to work one-on-one with somebody, there's a lot of amazing people out there.
I hate to say craziest, what's the craziest thing you've seen as far as results are concerned with tapping?
Oh, man. I mean, it's a new one every day, and it tops the last one of the day before. What stands out for me the most is probably what I saw when we filmed the documentary, The Tapping Solution, and it was a Vietnam veteran by the name of John who had 30 years of chronic back pain, multiple surgeries. I was on medication, couldn't sleep, was in a lot of pain, 8 or 9 out of 10 on a daily basis, and he did the tapping. He came to a 4-day event that we were doing, and he woke up the second morning, so he did about half a day of tapping in a group setting and some individual sessions. He woke up the second morning pain-free and has remained pain-free for the last 5 years.
That's
so his life was transformed.
Wow.
In just a matter of hours, which is really extraordinary.
And that's the difference between something that you can use and you can't use. When you can find those testimonies, folks, you just have to try it. The only way to really explain the results and explain the different experiences that folks have is for you to try it yourself. And I promise you, if you get the book and if you do it and utilize results, and they aren't crazy, and that's the thing I like about your work, Nick, is that this isn't airy-fairy, because there are lots of airy-fairy stuff out there in the spirituality genre.
It's grounded in a lot of hard science, a lot of research, and people can experience it. They don't have to wait 30 days to see the results, or it doesn't have to be a complicated program. They can have an experience literally in minutes and say, hey, this is working.
And I have to read this quote here because in addition to, the regular pain we experience and stress we experience in finances, relationships are another huge area. And you say something in your book, and I quote, "It's not your job to fix your partner or potential partner, and tapping isn't the tool to do that with. Work on your own stuff first."
Oh, I like that. That's the truth. Hard to learn, right?
Yeah.
But very important.
How do we apply tapping in the areas of relationships? Is it the same way, or is there a different method for relationships?
No, it's always the same thing. We always do the same tapping points no matter what we do. It's great. We just, the magic of tapping and the real mastery is figuring out what to say, what am I focusing on, what's the real issue here, that sort of I'm unlocking through the process.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Nick, thank you so much for joining me for the program. I know this was short. Thanks for taking the time out. Are you already in the city, or are you on your way to the city later on this week?
No, I'm on my way to Atlanta. I'm not there quite yet.
Beautiful, beautiful. Folks, if you're in the city of Atlanta, definitely stop by and check him out. And you can also download this show in its entirety by logging back on to www.unity.fm, program/Living on Purpose, and share the show on Twitter, on YouTube, and every social networking site there is, because this is good stuff. I'm Jesse Herriott. Thanks for tuning in. Be blessed.